Okay, hey everybody, this is Mike, Z Motorsports. I've been having some requests about my opinions, thoughts, feelings on the Precision Matthews PM1340-GT. GT is standing for gunsmithing lathe. It's a Taiwanese model. Decided to go ahead and throw a quick video together, hopefully answer some questions that have come up and kind of give you an overview and run the machine a little bit, let you hear it, see it. There's not a lot out there on YouTube when I was looking, so hopefully this will benefit anyone who's looking at this machine. Let's start off. I ordered this in a three-phase version and decided to go with three-phase and VFD. Reason being is single phase, when you start running your slow speeds for threading, you tend to get a little bit of pulsating from the 60 hertz, and it can transfer into your thread. So by going to the three-phase, you have 120-degree overlap of your frequency. It actually smooths things out, creates a little smoother running machine. You can actually turn your frequency up and down. You have to be kind of careful on a fan-cooled enclosed motor with a frequency drive. If you start running at too low of RPM, too low of frequency, you can overheat the motor. So I've set some little marks up so I can run it at 75 hertz to 45 hertz. Basically what I did is I took 60 hertz and I went 15 plus or minus. That's pretty much where I want to draw the line. If I need a short run of lower RPM, I will, but for the most part, in low speed on this machine is 90 RPM at the spindle. You turn it down to 45 hertz and you're going to get down in the 40 to 50 RPM range pretty easily, so which is ideal for threading large diameters or even small diameters, but it's, fine threads. So it's very functional that way. Let me show you how I mounted my VFD. Different ideas, different variations. People have mounted them to the machine. I've heard that's where Matt at Precision Matthews mounts his, Quality Machine Tools rather, where he mounts his, but I cannot confirm that. I don't know. I opted to buy the machine three-phase and put the VFD on myself. I'm a maintenance technician. That's what I do for a living. So the VFD for me was not that big of a deal. It's pretty simple to hook up. So let me show you. I mounted a NEMA 1 enclosure up here on the wall. I use the Hitachi WJ model VFD. I have my single phase coming in through some fuses. Then I have the three phase coming out and going directly to the motor. You want to make sure your three phase goes directly to your motor. You do not want to run that into the machine. Then I have my control wire coming out separately, running into my control box down here on the back. So that's how I've wired mine up. And then I've also wired a switch. It's just basically a double pole single throw switch. So when I turn that on, the power coming in goes into the VFD, and it also powers up the lathe at that point. My halogen light comes on. Again, that came with the preferred package. Very nice light. I highly recommend it. It's rigid. It doesn't bounce, doesn't vibrate around. Of course, the lathe itself doesn't vibrate, so that's helpful. Let me go ahead and show you what I did here on the control panel. Here's my potentiometer that I've run to vary your frequency. I went one step further also and put in a toggle switch for forward or reverse, and this is for the jog function. So what happens is that when you're in neutral on the drum switch, the VFD sees that you're wanting the jog function. You pick a forward or reverse function. Turn the power on there. So the light comes on, you can tell the power. The e-stop on these is a quarter turn clockwise. Once it's in forward, you can go ahead and push your forward or reverse. And you have a jog function. I will go ahead and set this up on a tripod and kind of run it through its paces. A couple of little modifications I've done to it besides the controls is just a little rubber mat up here. There's a recessed area. This thing doesn't roll off. I usually don't set things that roll around up here, but I just put a little rubber mat up here. I also made a couple little pieces out of some tubing and use existing screws back here that hold the door closed for the electrical enclosure. That's where I keep my T-handles. I added a unistrut with all my tool holders up here on the top with my drill chucks, handle with the ball on it for the Dorian quick change tool post. I really like the Dorian BXA tool post. So one other thing I did is down here for the carriage lock is I added a handle here from McMaster car to lock the carriage. Originally there's a socket head cap screw, 8mm by 1.25 thread pitch that locks down underneath here. It was somewhat, it wasn't a big deal, but it was inconvenience for me to grab an Allen wrench every time. This way, I put the handle on there, basically a quarter of a turn, it's locked. It sits lower than the compound slide, so you can still swing your compound slide and it'll miss that handle. If you ever need to, you can lift that up and it does rotate around. On my thread on Hobby Machinist, I actually have part number for that. So let me go ahead and set this camera up on a tripod and I'll walk you through the paces of the machine itself. Okay, to cover off the side here, you can see your primary belt. You have a two-step pulley for your high and low range, RPM range. Then you have your gear set for your quick change gearbox. This has the Norton style quick change gearbox. That is one of the draws for me to this machine, was the Norton style gearbox. It'll thread any US or Imperial thread rather without any gear changes. And there's only, I believe, 2 to do all your metrics. So very, very nice for threading. Not only as far as the setup of the gearbox, but the machine itself is very smooth. It produces a nice thread without any pulses or clanging around. So I've used some ways where you get a little bit of a gear rattle, for lack of a better term, and it's transferred through the spindle into the threads. You will not get that on this particular machine. So one thing one negative, I shouldn't say about the machine, I know it's at a price point, but the belt they put on this, for lack of a better word, is junk. You can see how it's frayed out. This belt has less than 2 hours of total use on it. Basically, I was breaking in the gears in the headstock with about 10-15 minutes in each gear, and I developed some black dust underneath the gear cover. I pulled it off and noticed the belt was just pulled apart, just shredded. So there's the part number. It's a Napa 5L280W. The W is for heavy duty. It's just a fractional horsepower belt. I put it on, and I've got about 20 hours on it now, at least 20 hours, probably a little bit more, and it's perfect. The machine was already fairly quiet, but the machine is actually a little quieter now with this new belt on it, and it allows the motor to sit down on the adjustment a little further away. There has been some talk on some of the forums and so forth that the motor is extremely tight up against the backside and underside of the bed and the gearbox, to the point where it's up against the screws for the alignment on the headstock. This belt will allow that to sit back down more towards the middle of the adjustment range, and it makes very quick belt changes. Most of the time, that's another one of the beauties of the three-phase machine, is you can leave it in the low range and you have speeds from 90 RPM to 780 on the gearbox, which by the time you adjust your frequency, you could get down around 40 up to probably 900 RPM in low range. I only bumped it up into high range one time. Since having the machine, I did that for 2 reasons. First of all, I wanted to see how quick a belt change did take, and you could do a belt change by the time you pull the cover off, do the belt change in about less than a minute. You can, if you wanted to, leave the belt a little bit less tension on it so that you could swap over, drop it off here and onto the other one. I know some people have chosen to do that. It's not really. You got a socket head cap screw right down here below the drive pulley. Loosen that up, slip your belts around, tighten it up. Again, less than a minute to change belt speeds. Not a big deal. However, and that was one of my concerns when I was looking at lathes. I didn't want something that was going to be cumbersome and time consuming to change speeds around. I was a little concerned when I found out that the high and low range on this was belt driven rather than a gear. But now that I've got some time on the machine, it is, and especially with the 3-phase and the VFD, it is pretty much a non-issue. So again, I would highly recommend going the 3-phase version and doing a VFD rather than a single-phase machine. I know some people think the single-phase is a lot more convenient, and it probably is to plug in, but there's so many more benefits that outweigh that by going with a 3-phase machine. I highly recommend it. Let's see, you can see where my wiring comes through the backside, where I added my potentiometer, my jog switch, and forward reverse and everything in here. I tied it right along the existing wiring. If I didn't, it looks factory. If I didn't tell you that that was not factory, you probably wouldn't know the difference. So there again, here's a view overview of the side. 1 9/16 clear through spindle, very nice. Already I've taken a few times, chucked up 1.5 inch aluminum or steel through here, and I did not have that feature on my last lathe. I don't have that feature on my lathe at work, and that is a very nice feature, large spindle bore. So another benefit of this machine. So let me go ahead and stop the camera here. I'll put the cover and everything back on. I'll change camera angles and run it a little bit and let you get a sound for it, a feel for it, and go from there. Okay, one other thing, I was putting the cover back on, one other thing that hit me that I would like to mention, if you're new to lathes, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, newbie, whatever you want to call yourself, on the belt over there, you can leave it a little loose, and I actually advise that if you are just learning how to run a lathe. One of the worst things you can do on a lathe is crash the carriage into the chuck, into your work. It's hard on spindles, it's hard on bearings, it's hard on chucks, it's hard on the whole machine. So if you leave that belt just a little loose and you happen to run into a crash situation, the belt will slip rather than doing more damage to your lathe. Once you get more comfortable, the comfort level goes up, experience goes up, everything, go ahead and put a little more tension on the belt, and you know, your confidence level goes up. Then there's no chance of slipping it, so you get into a heavy cut. That being said, let's go ahead and jump right in here. Again, your emergency stop, light indicator light, these are all 24-volt features off of your VFD. Go ahead and here's your, like I say, your Norton style gearbox, your threading charts, that's the Imperial, and your metrics tells you which gears to move on the gear train. Again, very, very, very minimal gear changes to do all of Imperial and all of metric threads on this lathe. Here you have your A, B, C, D, E, F, your coarse adjustments, your fine adjustments 1 through 8 on this half. Right here on the side, there's a little rubber plug. This is there's some confusion or maybe misinformation on this out there. This is not lubed by the headstock. There's a sight glass right here. You should keep the level of gear oil halfway up this sight glass, as well as the one over here on the apron. Right here there's a plug. Give this a squirt of a DTF, hydraulic oil, 30 weight engine oil, anything. I know people, you can even use whey oil. Whey oil can over time get tacky, sticky, and attract dirt and so forth, so that's your call. But there's a hole in here. What there is right underneath this electrical panel here, there's a felt piece with a bunch of holes drilled in it. It's this Norton style gearbox is a drip lubrication system. I want to repeat that. This is a drip. So when you put oil in here, it goes in and soaks that felt, and then the felt was kind of a time release, and it drips down on the gears while they're turning, rotating. That's why I put an absorbent pad underneath here, just to catch things. Otherwise, you'd have a few little drips here and there. Not the end of the world, just wipe them up. I got used to doing this at work. I was putting an absorbent pad underneath it, and it's just something I've just always done. So no big deal. I just want to let people know that if it's not dripping, you probably ought to give it a squirt or two of oil and re-lubricate that felt in there. And go ahead and show your knobs, or show you the consistency. You see these change very, I mean, you have to grab them. They're not, you don't have any leverage like you do with the levers up here. This one here changes whether you're going to do your feed rod or your lead screw. And it's just 1, 2, quick clicks, boom, boom. If you, those that have this lathe, or if you're looking at this lathe, you will notice that when it comes, you can see where they've taped this off and painted the machine. One of my pet peeves was when I changed it from one direction to the other, I saw that tape mark, that white paint, move with the knob. Drove me up a wall. I ended up taking some lacquer thinner on a rag with a screwdriver wrapped around it and got in and removed all the paint. So there's no paint on this knob, and no matter where you move it, all the paint's been removed. I did the same thing up here for the directional. Again, the directional between, it changes directions of two things. Your carriage direction and also your crossfeed in and out. So there again, that knob, very nice and smooth. Boom, boom. There's your carriage moving towards the headstock. There's your carriage moving away from the headstock. And that's all controlled over here on your apron by your engagement levers. So you have your feed rod, lead screw, and direction. Then you have your 3 speeds based off of 1, 2, 3. Then you have your high-low. You have pulley positions. There's been some confusion on how the gear head is on this. You basically have 6 positions, 3 in 2 different ranges. So there's 6 speeds in high range and in low range, depending on where that belt is at on your pulley. Most of the time I'm spending in the low range here from, you know, threading down in the 90 RPM and under with the variable with the frequency, or, you know, 400 to 600 RPMs for your mild steel or aluminum is not common. If you need to go up into your higher ranges, slip your belt over, and then you have the high and low range up here on the top half of the scale. The levers on this machine, very impressive. There's your neutral, there's high range, low range, 1, 2, and 3. The detents are very nice. Sometimes you do have to rock your chuck just a little bit because you are moving gears in here that are cut on an angle for noise and so forth. I believe they're a 14-degree angle gear, but you do have to. They're not synchro. You do have to engage the teeth on those gears, and to do so, sometimes you have to just move the chuck a little bit. That's just the way these lathes are. It's not to say one's better than the other, or there's something wrong with it. If some positions where you're stopped, you can go, like right there, boom, I went right into high, right into low. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw of where the machine stops. Okay, so change camera angle here. I wanted to show you how smooth the screws are, and here's the compound slide. It is extremely smooth, and just the movements are very fluid. On my last lathe, I had tighten up the gibs and everything on it, and it would get to where I had one spot in the middle where it was good, and then the ends were tight. And boy, not on this. I put a dial indicator on it the other day and tried to get some play out of it. It is rock solid. Crossfeed, same way. The handles, the screws, you can't feel any burrs or dings or anything on any of the screws. It is extremely smooth. The carriage, very smooth back and forth. On the ways, the gears inside the carriage, inside the apron there. At about 10 hours, I changed the oil in the headstock and in the apron. So I have about maybe I'll probably have 10 plus hours on this oil already. It's after braking and everything, so things are loosening up. I have another video where I show boring into an inside diameter shoulder, and I have my soft stop set up with dial indicator, and you can see in that video how easily the engagement is on the carriage engagement, and how you can come up on the soft stop and pop your lever exactly where you want, routinely, repeatedly. That's one of the things that's very nice on this machine, is the repeatability. I can come in, and everybody knows how nerve-wracking boring or threading into a shoulder can be. I was boring into a shoulder, and I'd get it set up. I'd move my carriage for for my material removal. Boom, engage my carriage feed. It would run in as soon as my dial indicator got to my preset number, pop it, and I could pop it routinely on the same number. Very nice feature. I've used some lathes where either the half nut engagement or the carriage is so tight you're almost two-handing it, trying to get the thing to release when you want it to. Not so with this one. Very smooth engagement on the cross feed and the carriage. So let's see, let me go ahead and fire it up, and I'll run it. I'll run it on I think I've got it set on 205 RPM right now. Go ahead and, so that was 205. Let's run it down to 90. Let's put it in low range and speed number 2, which is the slowest speed. There's 90 RPM, and there again. There's 45 hertz. You can see I could run that down almost to a stop. There's stop for thread. I don't recommend that. There's 45 hertz, and I would dare say that's probably 50-ish, 40, 50 RPM. I don't quote me on that again. There's 75. So let's go ahead and stop it there, and let's go to the other end of the spectrum. And low range again, but let's go up to 780. So that's going to be high range, number 1. You can see how smooth the machine is. I've got my chucks under, I believe this one here is 6/10,000ths of an inch run out. The stock one that come with it, the OEM one, three jaw, I believe is about 4 or 5 10,000ths of it, or no, 4 or 5, about half a thou, I believe it was. I'm trying, don't quote me on that. I've gotten the notes written down. But again, it's very smooth. You can go ahead and run that down. So 780 and run that down. That's probably 700 RPM up to probably maybe 850, 900. And you can see just how smooth that machine is. This is only in low range. You can go up to 1800 in this gear and with the belt on the other's pulley, and you're looking at about 2200 RPM. So there's 60 hertz. Let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and let's pick 500 RPM on this. So leave it in high range, and we'll go to speed number 3. And you can see how easy there. Boom, carriage. There's how easy the carriage adjusts, pops. There's your cross feed. Very smooth, very fluid. The levers are so smooth for engagement. Let's go ahead and turn directions. So you can now your carriage is going to feed away from your chuck, and your cross feed is going to feed out. Okay, now let's go ahead and change over to the lead screw. So now our lead screw for threading and your half nuts. And again, you can see how smooth that half nut engages and disengages. Very smooth, very consistent. Works fantastic. One thing I will mention, and I think I put this on my written review, but the threading indicator, threading dial, is marked differently than the indicator table. On most lathes that I've run, I've been familiar with, you have 8 marks, but 4 numbers. So you have a number, then a mark at 45 degrees, then at 90 degrees you have another number, so you'd have 1, and then 90 degrees from that you'd have number 2, 180 degrees, so straight across from 1 you'd have 3, and then 90 degrees again is 4. Then you have a mark 45 degrees each one of those. So for even number threading, basically you can engage the half nut at any number or any mark, so any of the 8 positions. However, on this indicator table on the lathe, it shows for even number threads engaged at numbers 1 through 4. If you put it on number 2 or 4, you're only at 45 degrees from number 1, so therefore you will cross your threads. That is one thing that is an error that I've found on this, so as long as you're aware of that, I'm hopefully pointing that out now, but if you're aware of that, you will not do that. I was playing around with it the other night doing some threading, and And I thought it kind of jumped out at me as I was looking at the numbers going, wait, well, on even, it's only showing 1 through 4. Why isn't it showing 1 through 8? So I thought, I wonder if this is marked wrong. So I went ahead and took a light scratch cut. Then I come back in and tried a number 4, and they made a scratch cut, and sure enough, it cut right across the threads and buggered and crossed over on the scratch mark. So I come back and made some tests, and basically on the threading dial, you have numbers 1, and across from it you have 5. 90 degrees, you have 3 and 7. So you, in any of those 90-degree positions, you can engage on an odd, but on even, you can pretty much engage on them. So it's just making you aware that don't trust your thread dial on this machine. There is an error there. So hopefully, by making aware of it, you'll not do what I did and cut across your thread. This is 1 9/16 diameter, very solid, very smooth, runs across the table very nicely. Same thing, tailstock is very smooth going in and out. The lock is very crisp and clean. I am eventually going to build me a tailstock, little linear scale, digital linear scale on there. But anyway, that's a quick down and dirty overview of the Precision Matthews PM1340. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me, and we will try to answer them. If you're looking at this machine for yourself, I highly recommend it. It is a very nice machine. The fit and finish, the engravings, the markings, everything is of the highest quality. I can honestly see a big difference between this and the Chinese machines that are available on the market right now. It's an expensive lathe, but I feel it's worth the money for what you're getting. Again, if anybody has any questions or anything that I did not address that you'd like to see me address, please feel free to let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you.